Plessy v. Ferguson and Chief Justice John Marshall by Jacqueline Castro and Sabrina Cambreros, Period 1.
Where have all the flowers gone?
Chief Justice John Marshall was born on September 24, 1755, in rural Fauquier County. He was the first of 15 children born to Thomas Marshall and Mary Randolph Keith. As a child, Marshall was homeschooled by his father but attended Campbell Academy in Westmoreland County for a year. George Washington was a major influence on Marshall in his teen years. He inspired Marshall to join the military so that he could take part in forming the new nation. When Marshall took leave of the military in 1780 while stationed at Oak Hill, he went to visit his father in Yorktown. While in Yorktown, Marshall met his future wife, Mary Willis Ambler. He then went to study law that same year. Marshall studied law by attending lectures at the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. After getting a firm grasp on English common law, Marshall built on his law practice by defending clients against British bill creditors who attempted to collect college debts during the British colonial rule prior to the American Revolution. Marshall began his career in government by representing Fauquier County in the General Assembly for a single term. From then on, he accomplished much more in various positions, examples being a city recorder, a delegate to state convention, a participant in the diplomatic mission, Secretary of State, and more. John Marshall served on the Supreme Court until his death on July 6, 1835, at age 79 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Overall, John Marshall played a strong part in determining the Supreme Court's role in federal government, making it the main power to interpret the Constitution.
The Plessy v. Ferguson case was argued on April 18, 1896, and decided May 18, 1896, at the location of Old Louisiana State Capitol, and the petitioner was Homer Adolph Plessy, and the respondent was John Ferguson. The Supreme Court considered the constitutionality of a Louisiana law passed in 1890. Providing that separate railroad carriages for white and black races. The law required that all passenger railways provide separate cars for blacks and whites, stipulated that the cars be equal in facilities, banned whites from sitting in black cars and blacks in white cars, with exceptions to nurses attending children of other races. Homer Plessy was 7/8 white and 1/8 black. On June 7, 1892, he purchased a first-class ticket for a trip and took possession of a vacant seat in a white-only car. He was arrested and imprisoned. Plessy was brought to trial in a New Orleans court and convicted of violating the 1890 law. Plessy filed a petition against the judge in that trial. Honor John H. Ferguson argued that the segregational law violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which forbids states from denying to any person within their jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws, as well as the 13th Amendment, which banned slavery. The court ruled that the object of the 14th Amendment was to create absolute equality of two races before the law. Such equality extended only so far as political and civil rights, not social rights. It was a 7-1 decision, and the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Ferguson. The majority rejected Plessy's 13th and 14th Amendment arguments, instead putting its stamp of approval on the doctrine of separate but equal. Justice Henry Brown wrote the majority opinion which rejected Plessy's argument. The court held that the 13th Amendment applied only to the imposition of slavery itself. The court rejected Plessy's arguments that the law stigmatized blacks with a badge of inferiority, pointing out that both blacks and whites were given equal facilities under the law and were equally punished for violating the law. They said, "We consider the underlying fallacy of Plessy's argument to consist in the assumption that the enforced separation of the two races stamps the colored race with a badge of inferiority. If this is so, it must not be reason for anything found in the fact, but solely because the colored race chooses to put that construction upon it. Plessy versus Ferguson gave a constitutional nod to racial segregation in public places, foreclosing legal challenges against increasingly segregated institutions.